it took a long time. I'll say that. And I didn't do near the work that the main guy in this is David Cano. I mean, I have to give the credit to him, and he did an outstanding job of, it's more of a documentary. I have people say, "What about the movie?" And I'm like, it's more of a documentary, and it really, I think more than anything, it talks about Tyler Sash as it should. He was everything in Iowa, and what we're trying to get across is, I know concussions have been talked about, head trauma has been talked about, but we're trying to keep the fire alive, I guess, as much as anything, and shed some light on some certain things. But Tyler Sash is a perfect example of what head trauma can do. And it doesn't matter, and this is the thing that I try to tell people, it doesn't matter if you've had 20 major concussions or one concussion, period. The one concussion can be the one that destroys your whole life. And the guy with 20 major concussions may seemingly have a pleasant life. So there's no rhyme or reason. And that's what's scary about concussions and head trauma. And I say concussions and head trauma when really they're sort of the same. But I think people relate concussions to athletics. But a concussion more or less is bruising of the brain. And the more bruising, the more severe. And, head trauma, same thing. So you slip on your ice skate and you slip, hit your head, lose your memory. You shake the cobwebs out. You're seemingly okay now, but what happens down the road in the future? And I mean, it's, with Tyler, and I was not familiar with this story until we started work on this. And I mean, it was, and I know there's other stories like this, but this guy was everything in Iowa high school athletics, went to the University of Iowa, was everything there, was the hero, was drafted by the Giants, and within a couple of years had a major concussion early on and just went berserk, went back home and went berserk. And everybody that knew him, and there was a lot that knew him, and you see this in the documentary, were shocked at the behavior. And again, it's just really frightening what can happen, and it can happen just like that. I think the NFL has done some good things, I really do, but I really think they need to gear their money and energy to finding a solution, a treatment. Helmets. And Dr. Amalu, if you remember him, Will Smith.
Can I ask you, because I've talked to him a bunch of times, yeah.
So I asked him, when is a good time for kids or humans to start playing tackle football? He kind of chuckled. He said, never. And I said, well, that's not going to happen. And he said, true. He said, but if they would at least raise the tackling to high school, you're still going to have problems, but you're going to save some kids some misery later on in life. There's no reason for elementary, junior high, ninth graders to be tackled. Absolutely, just universally, do a flag football deal, or and teach the fundamentals, but you're saving their head in the process.
When you look back at everything, you're probably going to say no, but would you have done anything differently? Any regrets, or it was just a learning process?
I bet I've had that same question 5 times this past week, and it really is tough to answer. I would think I would have a definite answer for that, but I think the way I've answered it previously, I really don't know, because I don't have to go back and do it again. But I loved to play football, and I knew it was violent. But knowing how serious concussions are now, as if I went back, there were times where I had, and here's the thing, I asked, or Dr. Malu said, Brett, how many concussions have you had? And I said, 3. He laughed. He said, 3. Where did you get the number 3? And I said, well, where I blacked out or was fuzzy or dizzy. He said, let me ask you a question. How many times did you get tackled or hit? And he said, high school, whenever, off the field, playground, whatever, where you had ringing in the ears, fireworks go off, cobwebs in the head. I mean, you're able to function, but you see a player shake his head. How many times did that happen? And I said, 1,000, maybe more. Like almost every time I got tackled, it was fireworks or ringing in my ears. And he goes, that's a concussion. He said, think about Muhammad Ali. How many times did he just get decked? I mean, I can count on probably one hand. But how many jabs did he get? Oh, he didn't think nothing of them. Neither did the people watching. But the damage that they did over time. And so Dr. Malu's whole point was those little small concussions that you've had add up over time. You had 3 major concussions. That's 3 too many. But 1,000 mini concussions are going to do the damage. And so I think if I were to go back in one of those moments where the bell was ringing and I had a fuzzy feeling, I think I would have not been as anxious to get back in the game. Because those moments, I was like, hell yeah, I'm playing,
Right. I'm sure you're asked about your grandkids as well, getting into the age where tackle football, they're getting to that age. Do you have the conversation? Is it up to them, up to your daughter?
They have never asked me anything about playing football. I have never addressed it with them. In fact, 2 of them are playing, 2 of the 3 are playing soccer at a travel tournament today. And that in itself can have its, concussions. But honestly, Steve, I would be so, and not from a living up to expectations perspective, but I would be so fearful of them getting injured, not just the head. And everybody's like, well, I can't believe you say that. Look at the way you played. That's different. That was me. As I watch my grandsons, I know how violent it can be. And so I honestly don't want them to be subjected to that. But so far they haven't. I mean, they'll ask me football questions, but they have no desire to play.
How much does your career, have a toll on your life today? I mean, obviously you were injured a lot, and not just the head injuries, back injuries, everything, right?
Yeah. I can't complain, even though I do. My wife won't give me too much sympathy. I'm able to do most of the things that I choose to do or I like to do. But for example, I was never a good golfer, but I try to play once a week with my brother and 3 of our close friends. The last time I played, I made 17 holes. The time before that, I made like 11. So I'm able to do things, but not without a reminder, of what I did for so long.
Before we were recording, you said you were cycling, and then you showed me this device helping your back. What is
Looks like
that?
a cell phone.
Yeah,
Looks like
tell us what that
phone.
is.
All right, so 2 months ago, I had a spinal cord stimulator implanted in my back. I'd never heard of it, which was surprising because it's been around 20 years. So my dear friend, who's also the back surgeon here in town, did surgery on me a year ago, and it was the term was a foraminotomy. What I was having prior to the surgery, and I've done, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, I've had 29 epidurals and 3 ablations in the last 2.5 years, which is a lot. Some worked for a day, 2 days, some didn't work at all. So we got it. We did the foraminotomy, and what the problem was like it was coming from my back, but it was leg pain, not shooting down my leg. It was in my groin, side of my hip, and in my glute. And usually when I woke up, it would be in the groin. It would move to the side as the day progressed. And by the time I got in the shower, it would be in my glute. And I'm telling you, I don't know what it's like to have an ice pick stuck in your groin or side of your leg or your glute, but this had to be pretty close. And finally, I couldn't take it. So my buddy said, well, we'll do the surgery. And he tried to talk me out of it as long as possible. He's like, these surgeries just historically are not long-term successful. In other words, 2 or 3 months. The problem was these facet joints on each side of my spine that I had described them as like noodles, and the nerves come up from the leg and go into these noodles. Well, all my noodles are clogged up with arthritis. And so they're squeezing the nerves. And we all know what it feels like when you touch a nerve, especially like in your mouth or whatever. Well, this is the major problem that my back is causing with my leg. I mean, I can move a certain way and it probably kinks that nerve in my back. But the surgery for about 2.5 months was great. I felt great. And then it came right back. But he said it would. So enter this was kind of like the last thing to try other than going back and do the same surgery again, which he strongly doesn't recommend, and I agree. So they put this stimulator in my back, and there's all kinds of programs you can have a feel or a non-feel. So feel, obviously you feel it. Non-feel, it's working, but you don't feel it. I tend to gravitate to all the field programs, and it's like if you've ever had stim on your leg or your arm, where they put the little pads on you and they crank up your legs jumping.
Yeah,
that's what this is like, but it's coming from inside. It's a little bit of a weird feeling, but like if I'm going through the day and I carry this remote everywhere and it's really hurting, I jack it up, and usually I'll sit in a truck or something. I have to sit down because it'll make me throw up, or I'll fall because it's almost to a point where you almost want to pass out. But I don't do that very often. Usually I got it on a low frequency, but so far if the pain is an 8 before the stimulator, it may be a 3 or 4 with it.